Welcome back to another episode of Sorry for Rambling. I'm Alex Cack, and I am joined today. Should have asked you how you wanted to be introduced. By Chicago R&B artist Apache Grosse, who I know I know him as Cody Grosse, because I've actually known this dude for more than half my life. So what do you want me to what do you want me to call you for this episode?
We'll do the hybrid. So just so folks know, Apache is my middle name, so they don't think I'm just coming out of nowhere. So we can just say Cody Apache Grosse. We can say Mr. Grosse. We could just say Grosse.
I'm never going to call you Mr. Grosse. I'll never call you Mr. Grosse.
Because you know my father. Yeah. I can't live up to that swag.
Because I called your dad Mr. Grosse when I was younger. So first off, I mean, how are you doing, man? It's been a while.
I'm doing good, man. It has, right? It's been like, when I think back to it, it's probably been like a decade, right? Like time's going by, like I'm gonna be wearing diapers pretty soon, but I'm trying to live this fast life as fast as I can, as good as I can for as long as I can. So I can't really complain. I'm doing all right. What about you, my guy?
You know, I'm all right. I mean, weird times we live in. We're all doing weird stuff. But I'm grateful, at least in one respect, that, you know, I'm sitting here talking to you and catching up. So I mean, let's dig into it. We're talking. I mean, one, because I love you to death, but two, because you have a new single that just came out a couple days ago, Sunday Prayer. So what do you want to tell us about it?
Yeah, man. Well, first I want to say thank you, because I remember sending it to you before it came out. And it's like, as an artist, every time you're releasing music, you're like, all right, here we go again. Is this the one? And I've learned to not really care about that. I do enjoy just hearing that people enjoyed it. So your response to it before it actually came out made me feel really great. And then you asked me to do this. I'm feeling exceptional. But song, Sunday Prayer, new track, new single. I'm sure we'll dig into it, but some cool backstories, recorded in a pandemic, completely remotely, between me, a guy in Chicago, a guy in Arizona, and a guy all the way in Germany. So it's definitely, like you said, doing some weird things. We're playing Music Astronaut over here.
It's almost like when that first Postal Service record came out and they were mailing the tracks back and forth to each other. So Sunday Prayer, I mean, yeah, you sent me the advanced track and it blew me away. I've watched you develop as an artist for like 15 years, but that song particularly blew me away. It's so dirty sounding. It's so clearly about fucking a married woman, right?
To an extent, right? I don't know if there's necessarily constructs of marriage, but there is commitment in that, right? The song is about infidelity. It's about passion, but it's also about these ideals and barriers that we create for ourselves as well. As you'll feel, one of the characters has religious undertones, and maybe it's not even necessarily the feeling that she's doing something wrong, but that it conflicts with some beliefs. So yes, on the surface level, it is very dirty, but hopefully if you dig through all the dirt, you can find a couple of gems that maybe will help you understand the greater things in life, or maybe you'll just have sex and smoke weed to it. I don't know, either works for me.
I mean, you definitely could. It's undeniable. I mean, it's a sexy piece of music. Like I'm here alone in quarantine. It was not the right time for it to hit me. But it is. I mean, it's like, it's something that you'd hear it in the background of some like thriller movie. Like,
do you think you could get that like sponsored, like in the background music that plays while you're swiping on Tinder and you're just waiting? You think maybe that could, for this new virtual world, like you're talking about, like while you're sitting there, that could get you motivated at least to swipe a little harder?
You should make it like a TikTok challenge. Like, you know, people screen recording their swipes while that song plays in the background.
That could be some promo. You know, I'm still, and like every marketer is going to like yell at me for this, but I'm still not on TikTok.
Dude, we're too old.
Dude, I don't want to say that. Like, I'm just thinking about social in general. And like, I enjoy certain aspects of like Instagram. Like for this release, I took down all my photos and I made it kind of like a wall of art as far as like how I wanted to portray just this song. I don't know, like with social, it's always hard to like try to portray oneself, like without getting egotistical about it, or just like remembering that like, oh, I have to hold this camera up now and record what I'm doing. So it's like I've always struggled in that realm of like being extremely active like on social media. I think I have like 3 tweets in the last like 2 years. So
I struggle with like the video aspect of a lot of it. I think like I'm fine at like typing shit out, like talking to people, like and commenting back and forth. But like the idea of like me talking just by myself into a camera is something that like I'm getting better about, but it's like kind of weird. Like it makes you feel kind of crazy, for lack of a better term. Like I'm just this guy talking to himself in my bedroom.
yeah, man. I mean, I just say to each their own. Like, I'm not throwing shade because I know there's definitely people talking to themselves in their bedroom, making tons of money and having a great life right now. Just for me, it's just hard. I enjoy filming things too. Like, a ton of, I make a ton of like film, right? I love taking photos. So I like capturing things that are happening, like as they're happening, but it's like getting yourself in that, right? I'm definitely not great at a selfie and probably won't attempt it most of the time. And like looking at someone like, hey man, will you record me really quick? Is also just like, it takes me out of the moment. So while you will see some flame footage sometimes, it's probably very rare just because that whole taking the second just to document it instead of like being in it is kind of hard.
I have too many double chins to selfie that often.
Yeah.
Like if I'm gonna be
You might get a
honest.
glare. You might get a glare off my top head if I know that the top down is the way to go, but I think maybe for bald guys, it's like down up is the better selfie route.
Yeah, how long you been bald now for? That the last time I saw you, you had like a full head of hair. You're like a Jerry
I had
curl.
a full head of hair, the Jerry curl. It was popping. Um, I started shaving my head before I went bald. I got like ahead of it. It was right when I came back from overseas. So I knew I was going to go bald because I stressed out about it. Like I remember being in my very early 20s and modeling and like just looking in the mirror every day being like, where's my hair? It just slowly disappeared. I was doing all kind of weird treatments and this to keep it. And it was working. And especially now, they have so many crazy things for any of you homies that are starting to go bald. You got the Hims pills, the this, that. But it's probably been about like, I don't know, 4 years. It was like right when I came back from overseas and I was transitioning from Cody Grosse to Apache Grosse. I was like, what's more symbolic of a new life rather than going bald? So you come into the world bald. I'm now, as Apache Grosse, entering the world bald, just as Cody started. So I don't know, man.
You came back from Europe and you were like, we're changing the name, we're changing the do.
Changing dude. I'm just gonna tell everybody that's how they did it over in Europe, bro. Everybody's bald. Those pictures are fake.
You toured Europe, right?
So I took a live tour, right? So like I got a one-way ticket to London and I started in London and I did play shows along the route, but it wasn't like we're setting up, we're doing shows. I didn't even know like what the purpose of it was, right? I was just like eat, pray, loving. Um and
You were booking them as you went.
yeah, no, I just had the freedom of like having a little bankroll. I quit my job. I was like, I have nowhere to be tomorrow. So I just sold everything I had, packed up a backpack, a guitar. And that was the time when I did document myself because I had my camera and I said I was going to continuously, like in every country or every city, like do a little video, right? Like, and so it became about music. And then as I was playing those videos, like I remember my first one was, so I went to London. I was only there for like 2 days and I was like, this is way too much like the US. I need some culture shock. So I hopped over to Spain. And when I was in Madrid, that's where I filmed my second video. But that's where just a random person came off the street. There's like people in the balconies listening, this and that. I don't know if you sing English and you're a tall black guy in Spain, people come up to you. But I don't even know if I was that great at the time. But people came, they invited me to come and play in their shop. So I guess that was a show. People were sitting there getting drunk, not knowing what I was singing. I was singing dirty stuff too. Like when I first got into music, like that's all, because it was like right when I was like listening heavy to The Weeknd. So it was just all of that. And then it was just like on the road, like Barcelona. I played a little residency in one of the hostels. From there, went to Italy, and Italy to Japan, and that's where I just stayed in Japan for a month, but like the experiences I had there really rounded out the whole trip for me. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I was in that monastery for a bit, and all those homies were bald. Maybe that's where I caught the inspiration for it.
So, you know, that makes me wonder. I mean, because you obviously you're not gigging, you're not traveling right now, but you've had several years of that kind of experience. I mean, what are some of your favorite memories from performing and from traveling around?
Yeah, man, it's a blessing. It's like you're alive, right? Like for me, a long time, especially when I was full time with the music without like any side hustle or this or that, and I was just watching the dollars go. It really felt like you were just like on pause until those moments. Because like you've performed, right? You used to do stand-up comedy, this and that. When you're in it and you're doing the thing you love, and there are people there to witness and watch, and you can see that they're enjoying themselves, it's like heaven, man. You know, so like those shows were absolutely amazing. They were fulfilling, and they were like, that's the beautiful thing about life, right? Like I don't know where I'm going to end up, but I still remember those feelings, and I try to hold on to that. Now I'm trying to make that be the thing important. It's like for that 30 minutes, I had made it, right? It didn't matter what was going to happen after the show. It didn't matter what happened before it, but like while I was in that moment, I had made it. My dream had come true, and it was a life. And then those fucking after parties were pretty lit too, man. I remember, especially when I first started, I just like my first show at Elbow Room, we were in this trap house for the after party. I hit like a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy with the space. And I remember at the time I was working for Yelp, and like a couple of my bosses went to the show and then somehow ended up at the after party. And it was the funniest thing ever. It was pure, it was like it was written like out of a TV show. And I absolutely, I loved it. It was absolutely great. We're not touring and doing things right now, but I'm finding other things to be fulfilled by. But yeah, I've never gone on like a full tour, right? Where it's like 30 days, hit the road, live in the bus, this, that. I would love to do that at some point. That seems like an ultimate dream, but those little shows, man, they really were popping.
Well, no, you know, I think that's the thing too. You said it's like, you know, when you're up there, it's like you've made it. It doesn't matter sometimes, like how big the crowd is or like how just like insane that like the show is. I know if like there are shows I did in like weird fucking places and like small towns that were like some of my favorite shows I ever did. And there was like shows I did in theaters in like bigger cities where there's like no one there, and like, or if there are people that were there, they were terrible. And it's like, it's weird, the ones that stick out to you sometimes, or the ones that like give you that feeling of like fulfillment, because they're not the ones that you would necessarily expect.
There's some where like I would play like I don't know, like those mid-sized shows, like the 100, person in the audience, and it just really depends on the situation, because sometimes you play those shows and you're having a great time and you're going, but maybe the people in the audience aren't as connected to you, or the venue, or this or that, and like you have a ton of people, but it doesn't necessarily make it a great show. One of my favorites was I played a show with C Money when he dropped he's a rapper out here. We have a collab track on Spotify called Gone off of his album, but I'm an R&B singer, right? So I'm singing smooth and sexy and this and that, but like I love Travis Scott, and I used to watch Travis Scott concerts online and just I saw him at Lollapalooza and just seeing people go nuts. And I always wanted that, right? So I even tried to write some songs to be just like that. And I remember this one show, it's probably only like 30 people, but we were in this tiny little room, and like it was them youths, them rough youths who just wanted to mosh. And I remember I kicked that track on and we were moshing, and I was like, I'll always remember that show. That was really great. So to your point, it's not always about the size, it's just the experience in itself.
It is interesting. you know, you mentioned being an R&B singer. I mean, it's like the larger genre that you work in, but like, you know, from track to track, there I feel like there's some difference. You know, there there's some that's like particularly smooth. There's almost like it sounds like kind of like in Sunday Prayer. I think one of the things that works so well of it is it sounds like there's almost like blues scales happening, but there's kind of like a hip hop beat behind it, which
Yep.
which is like particularly good. I know someone on Reddit was talking about how good the guitar work was, and it was. So I got to ask, was that you who wrote that part, or was that one of the collaborators?
Yeah, so that was that was my homie Chan. So I'm actually right now I'm in the process. Like I dropped the first episode yesterday. I have 2 more episodes to go where I'm doing a behind the music series on my Instagram. That just kind of like talks through and like dissects like how the song was made. But uh my homie Chan Fuse was the one who was playing those final guitar licks, and he just put the color, he put the love on it. Anytime I work with folks, I usually try to get the bones made. So like when I made this song, right, it started with just I was just playing that riff on the guitar, and I looped it, and then I kind of just made like this like slow, choppy hip hop beat, and then just freestyling, and that's when like the vibe came. Put like synth bass in there, a couple transition pieces, and then that's when I started reaching out to folks. So I hit my boy Gar up, who lives in Germany, and I was like, he makes the sickest drums. I was like, hey man, do you want to rework these drums? He reworked those. My boy Chan, who's out here in Chicago, I hit him up and I was like, hey man, you want to rework these guitars? And he made it so different and so good. Like what I had at first was really laid back. Like Sunday Prayer originally was like hella just like, I'm like 4 blunts in chilling. And he came in with that just rock element to it, those hard elements and those just nasty guitar solos. And that gave it so much energy. The last step was I reached out to my boy Ryan Hall in Arizona, and he cut some live drums. And then I took those samples and moved everything around and kind of blended all 3 of our styles together into like that final form. And that's really what it made it snap. So it wasn't just me, right? It was 3 different cultures, you know, backgrounds, geographical locations coming together to kind of montage into this track. And all it needed was just things being reworked, pockets being created so like moments could live within, and that's how Sunday Prayer came.
How is it different? This is something that I'm curious about. How is it different collaborating with people in that kind of, you know, isolated remote space where you're doing everything like virtually at a distance versus
Yeah.
like collaborating with someone hands-on right there?
Yeah, I think there's benefits and disadvantages to both, right? Is first, let's just chat about the disadvantages of being remote. It's like when you're in person, you just got the vibe going, right? And you can just play for hours for a while together and rapidly bounce ideas off, right? Like he can play a lick and I can be like, no, let's switch it up. What if we did this, right? And you can have that kind of articulation and conversation because it's happening in real time. But the disadvantage is when you have someone come all the way to your studio and lay it down, you may like love it right then, but then as the song progresses, which this one did because there was 3 separate people coming in to add parts, is it's always hard to be like, hey, I know you spent that time recording this. Can you come back and re-record it because things have changed? So that's a handicap huge time because there's so many of my tracks I wish that I would have just had the person come back and redo it and and tweak it to like how the idea evolved, right? But the cool thing when you're doing remote is that people are recording in their own homes. There's that expectation that you'll probably go back and forth. So like Chan, like we went back and forth like 3 or 4 times. He kept sending me stuff. I was like, oh, let's switch this, that, this. And like I had to annotate it very carefully, right? To put like at a minute and 30 go, and I'd send him voice notes go like, so it's funny. But that was the cool part, right? Is like it being remote, everything wasn't rushed to get done right there. We could do something, send it over, chill, listen to it, see how it felt, and then just tackle it again as it goes. So advantages and disadvantages to both. But I really kind of like this because I felt like with a lot of the homies, I could go back and ask them to redo something to more fit the vibe. And it didn't seem like that big of an ask, rather than like, hey man, I know we recorded for like 10 hours. Can you come back out and do it all over again?
Yeah, so it's like in some there's parts that are almost easier to do it this way, which is it. You kind of wouldn't expect it, I guess, until you're doing it.
Yeah.
Do you have a? So I mean, this single came out, so obviously you're kind of you're riding that, you're promoting that. But I mean, do you plan? I have you recorded more material during this quarantine period like this, where you're going back and forth with different people in different places? Do you plan on doing so? Or are you gonna try to cut a whole quarantine EP or album?
Yeah, man. So I'm in a I'm in a really interesting and weird spot in my career and just creatively. I have a private SoundCloud link that has 131 songs. So like over the course of like, I'm addicted to starting stuff and not finishing it. And some stuff is like 80% there. I just need to record the vocals and tweak some things. But I get so fascinated with like what I'm doing in the moment that I just keep shelving stuff. So I have a ton of stuff that I've already started that I would like to finish some things and get them out. And with that, we'll revolve around doing some remote collaborations. But I've also been in the midst of working on a project for about like 2.5 years now, and it's multidimensional. It's very, very vast. It's been the focal point of I guess my career as far as like what I've been trying to accomplish. And musically, it's pretty much almost there. We're just in the final stages of like mixing the tracks, which is like the last thing, right? Where you get the balance of the songs, where, you know, you have the effects, this and that. So it sounds like it's like studio ready. But the video aspect, so I'm shooting literally like a short film, right? Like 25 to 30 minutes across 5 different episodes, where it's a movie, but my music acts as the soundtrack. And so while finishing the EP, I'm also trying to work on getting the video filmed. And then with that comes the soundtrack, where I'm going to be working with another composer, where we're going to be disassembling the actual album and creating this like score that flows between the movie, because the movie won't have any sound. It'll all pretty much be just a soundtrack that's playing over these visuals. So as you know, we started shooting, we you know, got ready to go, and I think it was like May, and then like boom, pandemic hits, right? And like that's the one thing you can't really do, is you can't get a room full of 20 people and try to shoot, you know, a project. It's not happening. So in the meantime,
In a
I'm
really, really big
studying.
room with open windows, put everyone in masks, put them all 6 to 12 feet apart,
There we go.
write the
That's a
dialogue
video,
around that. Yeah.
right? Fuck the aesthetic. There we go. That's
and
all
then
we need.
and then send them all to the hospital because you probably killed like 3 of them.
Well, we'll just have like the rapid testing, and we'll have, you know, we'll do that. There's like crazy treatments too. I was just listening, where they have these cows, where they actually have been infecting these cows with the virus that in their body creates these antibodies, but then they take the plasma from the cow and like concentrate it. And I'm like, I heard that, and the first thing I thought is like, well, I don't have enough money for that, because you know that's like that they're like pumping that into like George Clooney like all day long.
Well, I was reading they're testing like all these animals, like they're doing like llamas and like some other shit. Yeah, it's like the same thing. It's like they're basically like getting these animals sick so they can test their plasma to figure out which ones they could use on humans, maybe. Which
right?
sounds kind of fucked up.
Dude, I mean, it's just, I mean, we could talk for years. I don't know if that's a part of this podcast, is to talk about this current situation. I feel like I watch it in the news all day long, and I chat with my girlfriend every day about it and ponder. And I mean, I feel like I've got an answer. You've probably got an answer, right? This person's got an answer. I don't know if my answers are right.
Any answers,
I don't know.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have to be right.
Answers.
Right? You remember in math class they said do this, you still guess. Sometimes you gotta write, sometimes. I'm just saying, I maybe have some theories, this or that, but I don't think that it's gonna make a change right now until we figure out how to actually, you know, deal with this on a global, on a political, on a logistical level. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Until then, movies and stuff like that are on hold.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. Until then, it's weird how different. I mean, because life moves on. It's
Yep.
just, it's this. I mean, it's people talking through a fucking computer. This is what we're doing.
Dude, it's just like I think, you know, 2020 was it's absolutely horrible, but I think it was absolutely necessary. I mean, just for the mentality of people. Like, I try to think back to before this year happened, and it was like I was living in a dreamland where like nothing was real, right? And it's like we all have our own issues and our problems, but I think that we a lot of times focus on that and we don't take the time to have empathy to look out and see what else is going on in the world, right? So like outside of having this pandemic that is affecting everybody, right? So something that we are all suffering and together, there's all of these social issues, political issues, things that it's just literally like somebody took the firework and they shot it, but they shot it into the barrel of the other firework.
Yeah.
And so like everything is changing. We're forced to completely change the way in which we are thinking, right? And at the same time though, we're still like being controlled and pushed by these mechanisms of division. Like when we think about social media, when we think about news outlets, this and that. So it feels like it's a critical point. I'm just hoping that out of all of this, people's minds change. I hope that people wake up and that they start thinking not just about themselves, you're right, but they start thinking about everyone around them. Like, what is my life compared to yours? What are my advantages, disadvantages, and how can we help each other? Right? Like, I don't know. I got a heart, and I'm just hoping that people, come together and figure this shit out.
Well, I mean, like we have to, right? There's no way around the idea. I think that we're in a global cultural shift, and I think especially when you look at like Gen X, Millennials, Gen Z. So like all of your fucking 20-year-olds to your like 45-year-olds, right? It's a big group of people. But
Yeah.
all those people are still young enough that like they're having kids, they're having grandkids. They're going to have to live for a while in the aftermath of this period of time. And they're the ones most likely to survive, getting sick, global warming, all these other bad things going on. But no one's going to survive it if we're not learning to be more compassionate to each other.
Well, dude, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
keep going because I like what you're saying.
Do it. I mean, it's just, that's just, I guess my point is these generations have to learn how to work better with each other, to care more about each other. And if this type of crisis, I mean, I think we're seeing it every day when we talk to our friends and family, when we watch the news, whatever, you're seeing this is pushing people. And it's either making them open their hearts more or close their minds more. But it's doing one of the two to everybody.
Yeah, man. I mean, I try to think, because we always say that, right? Like our kids' generation, right? And I just think about like my parents, right? Their generation. And when we think about, if you've ever seen like the documentary, like the 13th and stuff, is like, there's so many things that happened in our parents' generation that are now coming to fruition, right? We always think about things like global warming. I think the thing is that we always think the problem's further out, right? It's always the next generation who's going to suffer, have to deal with it. But I think that the systems we've created right now are really affecting us, right? The things that were put into place 50, 60 years ago politically, and like how our political system is structured, right? Like it creates the craziest noise where like people can't listen to a fact, whether you're Republican or you're Democratic. And I'm not here speaking on the politics of a party or this or that. I'm just saying things like the fact of people are like angry to put a mask on, right? And it's like, that's not because they're mad at the science, right? Nobody is looking at this math and being like, that's science. That doesn't seem right. Like no one's going to argue with the science if politics aren't involved with it, right? It's like people are angry at the politics, and that's clouding their mind from listening to anything else on both sides, right? On every side. It's the system that we've created, which categorizes us and separates us, right? That's the first thing, right? Is it divides us into these groups. And now it's like the stakes are so high that it's like, it's my group's got to win, or we're going to lose everything, or I'm going to lose everything. So I don't know, man. I think we're in a really, really crazy spot where I don't know how necessarily we're supposed to come about this. Like maybe the internet disappears, right? And we all go back. Right? Can you imagine like internet disappears, TikTok is gone. Maybe that's a hard.
The only internet allowed is AOL, and not current AOL, like 1997 AOL.
AOL, like way back in the day. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I think the biggest problem that we face is division. Right? It's like when we think about some of the greatest inventions, right, that have ever happened, or innovations, they've come from collective thought, or they've come from the ability to create, right? But when people are starving, when they're afraid of their rights, when they're under these extreme conditions, it stops innovation, right? And what we need is innovation, because we know that the systems that we have are really setting the next generation up for failure. So like, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just trying to spread positive vibes. I'm trying to have conversations with folks in non-confrontational states, right? It's like, I think right now it's really easy for us to see someone on Instagram that we know, that maybe we're friends with, and they post something political, and we're just like, well, I don't like that person anymore. And it's like, all that does is continue to divide, right? Like, if you really believe in something, what you have to do is have a hard conversation. Like, why do you feel this way? What do you think about this? What about this perspective? I'm not saying you're wrong, but like, let's come together and think about this. And that's just not what we're doing right now, right? Nobody got time for that. Even though everybody got a ton of time to learn.
Yeah, everyone's at home doing nothing, but no, I mean, that's, to me, I think that's the source of the root cause of all of the problems right now, and the magnitude of them is so much bigger because we're so much more divided. And you're right, it's this whole mentality of you see people post about it. I didn't think I'd have to unfriend and block so many people today after I posted XYZ thing, and it's like, well, maybe you didn't need to unfriend and block them. Maybe I'm looking at you and what you posted is absolutely right, and what your cousin was posting is fucking stupid. But maybe you need to tell them that, and you need to hear them out. You need to hear their stupid idea, so that you can recognize that your idea isn't actually as stupid as theirs, and maybe give them a chance. I think that's the other thing too, is like, there's so much of attacking the person on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's not the best way to do it, And I think the other thing you see is like, people express views, and when their views get criticized, they take it very personally because they identify with those views. Views, and they're not even value-based views, they're not morality-based views, but just views on systems of how the world should work. They make that their own identity. They say, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Well, no, you're not. You're a person, man. It's fucking, what you think about taxes doesn't make you you.
I think that's a very, very wise way of thinking about it, right? Is like, the fact that we're so attached to those ideas. Like, I mean, I was a sideline player for a while, and although I tried to have conversations, this and that, I really wasn't extremely vocal about political situations, things like that, until we really had like the George Floyd situation. And I remember I made a protest video. I made an awareness video where it was just me looping, playing some music. I did a cover of, I can't even say his name. It's like Michael Kwamba Ayambe. I'm a black man in a white world. And like, I got a ton of messages off of that, and I don't think anybody attacked me, which was really cool, but like, I got a whole bunch of like, just really like left field comments here, this and that. And I think that was the thing, was a great exercise in like not taking it personally, right? Like, I think it's always interesting, like when people interject into a conversation, right, as well, especially like when your message is trying to be supportive and you go into something thinking you're going to help people, and at the same point, like even doing that, right, and singing about what it was like to be African American growing up in America, it's like other people who don't identify that watched that video, and to an extent it hurt them, right? And some folks it hurt them and they were like, ow, I feel some sense of privilege, or this resonates with me because of what's going on. And other people are like thinking it's an attack at them because they weren't a Black man growing up in America. And it's like just taking a moment to understand that, right? Like it's hard because you're just like, oh, this is my view, this is this, but taking a second, taking back and just like having a conversation about it, or let the other people on your page just go at them.
Yeah, that works. Trust me.
Yeah.
You know, I think part of it from the white perspective on the racial moment we're having, where we see there's a lot of white people. I think we all see it, that we know on our social media feeds and stuff. People we've known in the past who we never really saw be overly hateful, and they're getting more and more kind of ignorant with their rhetoric in regards to race. Part of what I think I see is exactly what you're talking about, where when they hear these narratives, they think that they take it as some type of personal affront because they didn't have that experience. They think it invalidates the struggles they have had, or that they're being told. I think really a part of it is that they're being told, they feel like they're being told that they're part of the problem. I think they're also really candidly, I think there's a lot of people who are recognizing bad behaviors, microaggressions, things like that they did in past years, and they're having a hard time reconciling them because it's been brought to their attention that that thing they said when they were 18 or 15 or whatever was wrong. And they shouldn't have done that. They shouldn't have behaved in that way. They shouldn't have said what they did. They've got to get over that, though, you know, because I mean, fuck, I know I've been guilty of shit like that, especially looking back in younger years, where it's like, it's not coming, you didn't think it was coming from a place of hate. You didn't realize that you were perpetuating something like that.
Yeah.
People have to learn that doesn't make them a bad person. It's just a bad behavior. They've got to stop. Instead, we're seeing so many white people dig their fucking heels in, though.
Well, I mean, so I'll take it outside of even race, right? To a point you were saying I don't think that it's inherently the person. I think it's the systems, right? That we entangle, we have trouble, and the norms as well, right? Like I remember being younger and like being like, that's gay, this or that, and listen to so much rap music, right? And there's just like homosexual slurs here, this and that, and like, but you listen to it, it was in rap music, and you know, you didn't feel as though like, because I never had any hate in my heart at all, right? Like in choir, was in, you know, theater, hanging out, like so many of my really close friends were gay at the time, but I was still using like slurs, this and that, without identifying it to that. But that's because the way in which the system, you know, was created, the normality of it, it took a state of education for me to understand that that's not all right because it hurts other people, right? So I think that that's the hardest thing is always the system, right? Is like, yeah. And maybe in an extent, right? Because there's tons of people too that that I feel bad for when there's certain folks that start attacking somebody because they're white, right? And it's like, that's not what the messaging is supposed to be about, right? That if the messaging's to raise awareness about what someone who was not white had to go through, I don't think the answer is to point at the first white person you see and be like, you're the problem, you're the issue, you should feel bad, right? Like, because that's not true, right? Like I'm mixed too, right? My mom is white, right? And like, I can't see my mom being part of the problem, right? I think that the system is the issue, and that there's tons of great people, whether you're white, black, you know, straight, gay, this or that, that may benefit from a system, may be disadvantaged, maybe are ignorant to some of the behaviors that they have. But I don't think that for the majority, right, that it in the heart is this idea that I'm trying to take something from you or this or that. And then there are just those fucking ignorant ass bigots that just do go nuts and just like, you know, you see it on Instagram like every day, right? Like no matter like what race or this or that, people just losing their minds. And I just feel bad for them so bad. Like I see them on the gram, and I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, man, it would be so crazy to have a where are they now? Like MTV, where are they now? Like after someone just said something crazy racist and blew up on Instagram. Like love to see like just how the people who won the lottery, right? They show
Yeah.
like where are they in 5 years. It's like curious to see what happened to all those people who just like completely bombed their future for being just like hateful and ignorant on camera.
You would hope some of them learned though, right? I mean, that would be the best part of like that type of show. It's probably like 1 out of 10 maybe, but
Yeah,
even maybe
I
that's a
mean,
high, even maybe that's high, but
I don't know, man. I've seen American History X, right? Like Edward Norton showed us we can all change.
kind of real though. Like you see those videos,
Yeah.
you know, it's constant. I mean, there's like a million examples. It's just like type it into YouTube for like real quick, and you'll see like one video after another of like one neo-Nazi or like Klan guy who like all it took was like, I mean, it's the Daryl Davies thing, right? Where he was just like, he was putting himself like at risk to go like meet these Klan members and just like have
Yeah.
dinner with them. And it was like, he has that, like, he'd like have that system where he's like, we're not going to talk about race for the first hour or so of this. Like, we're just going to eat and hang out. And it's like, once their wall is down and they're like, oh shit, you're a person. And then it leads them out of that attitude. But at the same time, you've got this guy's literally putting his, he could have been murdered at any moment,
Dude,
you
I
know?
mean, that's what it is, right? Is we just how we started the conversation. It's that separation, right? It's isolation, it's silos, it's people starving from culture and outside perspective, right? Like I learned that huge just in my own mind, like when I went overseas, you know, and I got out of the United States. My brother like lives in Tasmania, like all the way down uh off the grid, and I was like connecting with him, and I remember when he moved out there he was like, man, the world's going crazy, and like I'm having a kid and I just want to raise him with the ability to, right, the ability to be as though, hey, this is what's right and what's wrong, right? That he's creating his own silo and his own family, this or that, but it's just like the idea of like going all the way across the world to find a new perspective, right? Rather than
Yeah.
just being entrenched. Because I try to think so much of like, what do I believe is like because I believe it or just because it's been programmed in me. And I think that travel is huge. I know that's not accessible for everybody, right? But like maybe traveling doesn't necessarily mean like go to Japan. Maybe it just means like go to a neighborhood you wouldn't normally do. Like I wish there was like, and there's got to be some kind of app, but it'd be so great to just like have an app and they organize local dinners, right? Damn, I shouldn't say this on the thing because I could probably get rich off this. I know, but somebody who's a developer do this and just give me 5%. But that would be so healing to have an app. And what the app does is it assembles a dinner every week in a different neighborhood, and it brings based on your ethnicity, your income, your religious preference, this and that. Like it actually brings people together that are not those things, and you have dinners and you just talk about your experience. That would be so good. That is such a good idea.
It really
I
is
need someone
actually.
to copyright this. Give me a week before you put this out so I can.
I mean, you could probably make it like a website. You don't even need like an app. It could just be something that people like. I mean, you wouldn't even need like an algorithm, right? You just need the people in the area. You have them submit their info, and like you could just play puppet master yourself almost, and just you
Yeah.
know, I'm gonna get these 5 people who've never met each other before, have not a damn thing in common. They're all gonna go eat at this restaurant that probably none of them have ever been to, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Obviously, this app takes place after Coronaville.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I want to do that personally. I think that would be very healing. I would love that experience.
I,
Yeah.
th- I thought I really wanted to maybe do a thing where I was like intentionally seeking out people that I knew that I had differing like strongly differing views with, like super hard right-wing Trump supporters and shit, and just like going and getting breakfast with them. I've been wanting to do that. I mean, you can't now, but I've been thinking about that a lot the last few months of just like,
Yeah.
it'll probably most of the time we'll wind up just fucking screaming at each other till we get kicked out of the place, but maybe not
Dude, I mean,
every time.
you probably look within your circle of friends. You know, I think that's the thing that this time has showed us too. Is I just remember like no one really talking about things
Yeah.
before. Like you didn't really know. Like I could take a guess, and I'd probably be wrong every now and then. If I would have known now what I knew back then, if I took a guess like back then who was this party or this or that, I would have probably gotten a lot of things wrong. Because once people started becoming vocal, it's like, whoa, I didn't know that you believed or felt that way. You know, and
Oh
so
yeah.
I don't know.
I was
Um,
amazed going back last fall after the video of me went viral. Like I work in politics. I post about politics for years all the damn time. It's like I fucking do it all day for a living. And but how many people from like back in the day deleted me after that video went viral? And I was like, what the fuck? Like you already knew I like felt a certain way, kind of, you know. But it was like that, like, and like no notice, you know. It's just like click off. Um, you know, or like the other day, like I commented on like a former coworker's thing, and like I had like her friends like berating her for like the fact that I was on her friends list because like she was right wingy and her friends were too. And the second like my name popped up, they like recognized it from the video and they were like, how, like, why the fuck do you know him? I was like, so we like worked together when we were 20 for like 6 months or a year. Like,
Dude, I'm so happy. Like I know once again it's poor marketing, but there's all those apps so you can see people who've unfollowed you or muted you or checked your stories, this and that. And like I do feel very grateful that I like do not care. Because I could see like that being a very heavy weight because people just do things all the time. And especially in like social media, there's so many things that just are not important, right? That people just do, right? They like the photo, they unfriend somebody, they do this or that, and it's like so much can get lost in translation. And it's kind of like when we first started texting,
yeah.
and you were trying to joke with somebody, and they thought you were fucking with them, or they thought that you were mad at them. When you're like, whoa, whoa, and like the text message goes on for 10 more texts, and now you're not friends anymore, and you don't know what went wrong. It's because you hit a period instead of like a question mark, right? It's like tone. We get further and further removed from like authentic communication. It's very easy for us to misinterpret a lot of things. But
It is.
I don't know. So funny how we started talking about music. We just went everywhere. I guess that's why it's called Thanks for Rambling.
Yeah, no, I mean that's kind of the point. Is the first couple episodes I did, I tried to keep it real structured with like questions pre-written, and I mean I guess it was fine, but it was like you get so much more, I think, just from talking and letting it go wherever. So like I just base the questions pretty much off of whatever whatever the person said. I'll find something in there and go, and we talk about all kinds of shit. I've had people talk about their kids. I've had people just like, you know, politics, business, like, you know, people that they are in love with when they were young. Like, just like it goes in weird places, and I kind of love that more than anything, you know?
LA Furtado, where you at? Oh
um,
man,
I did tell you to be a half hour, and we're way the hell past that though. So
I have no idea what time it is.
I'm gonna bring it towards a close here. And I do like to end all of these by asking everyone pretty much the same question, which is a huge break from the rest of the conversation. But you know, throughout all of your career, your art, everything that you put out, what is it that you really were trying to get across to people?
Yeah, man. I don't know. I don't know if it was necessarily like what I was trying. I think a large part wasn't. I don't know if it was what I was trying to get across to people that was important. I think it was really like what I was trying to get across to myself, right? Like I think that my career has been very left, right, up and down, and I think a big portion of it was just trying to be successful, whatever that meant, right? And I think I feel very, very blessed and happy now to not be as worried. I think for me, this whole Corona thing really being able to take a step back and it not just being go, go, go. I realized that like as long as I'm making music, I hope that people just know that I love this, that storytelling is a deep passion of mine. And I feel very connected to just doing that and just telling stories, right? And letting the rest be the rest. So that's where I'm at right now. It may not be about me, it may not be about you, it may be about somebody. And like hopefully in there you can find some entertainment and some ease, some, you know, escape or some lessons. And that's all I hope for.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's good to see you, man. That's Apache Grosse. The single is Sunday Prayer. Links will be in the description and bio on this podcast. As always, this is Sorry for Rambling. I'm Alex Cack. And you can now subscribe on Patreon, as well as buy all kinds of stuff with the logo to this show on it. Links in the description.
Awesome.
You spend your time saying grace, trying to follow God's plan. A shame that you want me. You only hit my phone when you unfulfilled by your man. And I don't care who he is, what he got. Baby, he don't know who you are. And I can see all the guilt in your heart. You never thought you'd go this far.